Accounting and auditing firm KPMG Ghana is challenging the government to continue with initiatives that will support the growth of the small and medium enterprises through access to cheaper funds. According to senior partner Anthony Sarpong, the economic crisis can be overturned in the medium term if the government prioritizes growth for the sector. He also advised multinationals operating in the country to adopt a hybrid style of work for staff rather than embarking on mass layoffs.
In the medium to long-term measures, we'll expect government to continue to focus on revenue growth, tax revenue. They're already doing some of it in terms of using digitization to identify taxpayers and to deepen tax revenue. Those measures will continue. The effect will be medium to long term that we will have that. Second, government should continue to focus on growth. Growth in a sense of revitalizing our entrepreneurial initiatives. Again, these are areas government has tackled, and we would expect that the crisis will not stop government from moving away in terms of providing affordable access to capital, in terms of providing facilities that create standards and efficiency in production, and in terms of facilitating access to market. If we do some of these things over time, then gradually growth will improve, outcome will improve, people's income will improve, people will be lifted out of poverty, and eventually will move out of this crisis.
Any projection on job losses or employment in general when you look at the outlook?
So that drives me back into the corporate setting, as you asked earlier. So in terms of corporates, the environment, again, is going to be challenging for them. Rising costs, and therefore, if you cannot pass on your prices to consumers, what it means is that you're going to have dwindling margins, and your cash flow is also going to be tight, particularly in inflationary season where demand is expected to be tamed based on the monetary policy that government, Bank of Ghana, is pursuing. So what could happen is that revenue and growth could be tamed, costs will rise, and margins will fall. So for companies, what they need to do first is to really look at their strategy and say, what can we do best in this particular situation and generate the most revenue out of it, and ensure that they focus on that. Then also look at the welfare of the employees, because at the end of the day, in the short term and in the long run, what will make a company resilient and sustainable is to ensure that they attract the best talent and they're also able to retain them. By retaining human beings with good employee experience and value propositions, and in difficult times like this, what kind of welfare situations that you can put in place. So for companies that can sustain and manage with their workforce, they are encouraged to do so. And those that could not can then look at how they restructure their workforce such that it can minimize costs, but at the same time employ them. In that respect, for example, COVID has taught us a hybrid. Instead of the traditional layoff, could we have, if a company has to, for example, face a situation of laying off people, could we have a situation where people are working part-time as opposed to being laid off eventually, because there's expectation that growth will rebound in the short term to medium term, and therefore you need some of these people back. So back to your question, yes, in the current situation, workforce can be challenged, layoff can be challenged, but one would expect that in our situation, particularly in Ghana, despite all the challenges, we will expect some growth as opposed to the developed countries where they will have a recession. And therefore, even if it happens, one would expect that it's very, very minimal and should be short term.